to hit the king high flush. And, of course, he might think he's ahead right now with ace-king.
Let's see how he wants to play it.
It's 6,000 back to Feldman.
I can't imagine him laying it down. He might try something creative.
Now, obviously, Andrew Feldman, a phenomenal player in his own right, but he's up against Phil Ivey.
Probably more used to playing online. Becomes a bit of a different story when you're staring down at probably the greatest player in the world, Phil Ivey.
Well, he's going to call, and we're going to see a turn. And the turn is the club. It's the action card. It's the 4 of clubs on the turn. Phil Ivey with the absolute nuts.
Well,
actually, I shouldn't say the absolute nuts, right? 9, 10 of clubs actually would be a straight flush. Thank you for catching me right there. But either way, Ivey.
It's going to be enough for him to put the chips in. That much is certain.
But if you're Feldman, how many chips do you put in there? Remember, you can't beat 9, 10, and you can't beat the ace.
20.
20,000.
Well, I bet he puts in at least another 20,000.
He really going on a limb on that one, huh? If you're Andrew Feldman, all you can do here is call. You're not raising.
No.
You know, if you raise, you're only getting called by a better hand.
He also knows, he makes this bet. What's it going to be on the river?
Well, he did make the call.
He may be able to pass it on the river, but I've seen Andrew play a couple of hands where he's made some calls on the river to maybe try and call someone down.
Well, the 5 of clubs on the river. Well, if somebody had 6, 7 of clubs now, that's a straight flush as well. Ivey with the ace high flush. Feldman with the king high flush. Feldman made a tough call on the turn. 20,000 chip bet. $20,000 bet, I should say.
I'm all in.
All in.
Phil over betting the pot. Moving all in here. Basically saying he's actually putting Andrew all in.
Phil Ivey is all in. Andrew Feldman with only 65,500. It's pretty much a pot-sized bet.
Yeah, it is.
Unbelievable. Turn of events here. Now, Feldman has to know that Ivey either has pretty much the nuts or nothing at all, right?
Exactly.
I mean, he wouldn't be value betting with a 10 or a 9 of clubs.
No. It's got to be going through his mind. It's pretty well a bluff or nothing. A bluff or an ace, the ace rather. There's always the chance he's up against 9, 10 of clubs, but...
Well, he certainly has to know that Phil Ivey is capable of a big bluff like this. The former paperboy put to the test. He's won over £4 million online. But right now, he's faced with a big decision because Phil Ivey has moved all in.
Cool.
Oh, and he calls!
He makes the call. I've seen him make a few calls in the past. I wasn't surprised that he did it. He's got to realise the only hand he's beating there is a bluff. No one's going to be making a value bet with the 9 or 10. That's a big, big pot and a big, big blow for Andrew Feldman.
And Andrew Feldman, it's his first time at the $1 Million Cash Game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an ugly welcome to the game as he's quickly down $100,000. Well, things have gotten a little shaken up here. Phil Ivey as usual, on top of the leaderboard. You know, some things never change. He is up over $130,000. Chris Ferguson behind him. He's up over $15,000. Our big loser so far, Patrick Antonius, down $26,000, but Andrew Feldman, well, not a very welcome to the party. He's down $100,000. Well, Andrew Feldman, he's not a quitter. He's rebought for another $100,000. And a player like that, what's he thinking now?
Well, he's probably regretting the call, that much is certain. Feels he's probably a little bit unlucky, but he was up against Phil. And I just don't know whether Phil makes the bet that he made without the ace of clubs, so he might be regretting it a little. But he'll pick himself up. You don't win the kind of money he's won without being able to change your game, up it. But he is up against Phil Ivey. It's going to be a tough road back for him.
Well, one thing that's interesting is once Phil Ivey bets on the turn and gets called, Phil Ivey really can't make that bet on the river unless he has the ace or the straight flush. Because his opponent could have that. Remember, his opponent smooth called him.
Exactly.
Well, let's move on here. Button is in front of Tom Dwan. Phil Ivey, the big winner so far, is in the big blind, but that's Patrick Antonius. Pretty boy with the suited ace.
Yeah.
Yourself could have saved you.
Nah.
Pass. Pass. Pass.
Just the blinds.
2,100 total. Pass. Pass.
And Patrick Antonius is going to take this one down. Matusow does not defend with his ace.
If you really want to know what I think about it, let me know.
Say it.
Everybody at the table laughing except Andrew Feldman.
Say what's ever on your mind.
What's on my mind?
It was a bad call.
It was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. There you go. I had to say it. I couldn't help myself.
That's why you're here. Commenting other players.
Somebody's got to entertain this table, and since I'm here with a bunch of wet noodles.
That's right. Every time you know something, you have to say it. It's in your contract.
But I knew one thing: when Phil moved in on the river, he had the ace of clubs in his hand minimum.
So I never move in with less than that.
I called 20,000 on the turn.
I would never do it, ever.
What you just think he called with on the turn? Zero?
Pass.
The king of clubs.
Yeah, I know, but I thought you had the ace, to be honest with you.
I played exactly like the king of clubs.
Yeah, but if you had the ace, you'd have played it the same way, too.
Nah, never.
Really? I would have.
He's all going in for a shove with the ace of clubs.
Matusow very critical of Feldman's call.
No, on the flop.
Well, in fairness, Mike's pretty critical of almost everyone else's play.
Pass.
Rarely his own, though.
Well, it was a couple of seasons ago where he was the self-proclaimed best no-limit cash game player at the table and then proceeded to lose $200,000.
That is good news.
And Tom Dwan going to take that one down. Mike the Mouth Matusow still talking. Phil Ivey still winning.
And then
Get a raise from Chris Ferguson.
You made the exact same play on Ellie tonight.
1,800.
First position raise with a 7-8 suited. He's mixing it up.
Well, he figures everybody else is busy talking. Maybe I can just steal a pot when nobody's looking.
1,800 total.
I can fold now.
Pass.
It's also a very dangerous spot when it's Phil's button.
Pass.
Well, we don't have to worry about Phil, though. We do have to worry about Tom Dwan if you're Chris Ferguson. He's called in position with the ace-queen offsuit.
Flip with him.
A vulnerable hand if you're calling it, you know, an under-the-gun raise for Chris Ferguson, isn't it?
It certainly is. That's probably why he's only flat calling a lot of players he might have re-raised with.
Well, Chris Ferguson has outflopped him. He's hit second pair. He's also got backdoor hearts. Really nothing there at all for Tom Dwan. I mean, if you're Chris Ferguson, I think it's you definitely have to do a little continuation bet here, right?
Yeah, that's definitely what I'd have thought was on the agenda.
Yeah, Ferguson a 3-1 favorite over Tom Dwan. Does Tom Dwan float one here, knowing the type of player he's up against?
He could do. Wants to see whether he's going to fire again on the turn. Hope he's up at now. He's probably hoping he's up against Ace King if he does decide to float one. I just think the range of hands Chris is likely to have in this spot. Normally, we're not looking at the 8-7. If we're looking at kind of genuine hands.
I mean, you're thinking minimum Ace King. But if Chris Ferguson does have Ace King and Tom Dwan calls one time, he can probably take it away from him on the turn.
Exactly. He might be able to take it away from him if he's sitting there with like 7s or 9s or something like that. So.
I'm always in trouble.
Well, he's putting the pressure back on Chris. It's going to be interesting to see how much Chris likes his hand.
Yeah, Tom Dwan has raised this one up, and the action's back to Ferguson.
Total.
It's an odd... Now, Ferguson next to bet 3,000. Tom Dwan has raised it up to about 9, I want to think. Now, if Tom Dwan actually had a legitimate hand here, might he just smooth call, though? It's an odd raise.
Exactly. If he's sitting there with a 10 or an 8, he's probably likely to smooth call. It's almost like he's representing a set, because that's the kind of hand you might want to try and shovel a lot of chips in with.
Chris Jesus Ferguson, always so deliberate about everything he does at the poker table. And this is no exception.
It looks like he's reaching for the chips, wants to make the call. No, looks like he wants to make the re-raise.
Raise.
What a great play here from Chris. I think he's realised that that was a move by Tom Dwan. Good play by
26.
Chris, and he picks that one up very quickly. Nice read. And that's why he's the 2000 World Series of Poker champion.
It's a fantastic play by Chris Ferguson. I mean, I think he played it pre-flop like he had aces or kings, and he said, you know what, I'm going to continue it like I have aces or kings. I also think Tom Dwan probably would have been more successful had he just called and then tried to take it away in the turn.
I think you read it absolutely right when you said if he's got any kind of half a hand here, he's just going to flat call and see what happens on the turn when you're up against Chris in a first position. He spotted it for what it was, and just great play by Chris.
I'm Chris Ferguson, 2000 World Champion of Poker. I've played poker all my life. I don't remember when I learned the game. I'm sure my parents taught it to me at some point. It was 1994, so when I really decided to take the game seriously and study the game, trying to be one of the best poker players in the world. It's not something that I decided to become a professional poker player. I play poker because I love playing poker, and eventually I was making more money playing poker than anything else. And that's when I realized I was a professional poker player.
Well, it's 24 hours of intense poker action. And I thought for a second it might take a while to get things going, but I was wrong, because right away, Phil Ivey up $130,000. Tom Dwan first to act. Now, one thing's interesting. I know you have a lot of experience having won $100,000 or even lost $100,000, as sad as it might sound. How do you feel either way? I mean, what are these players feeling just minutes into our first action?
Well, I think if you're setting down for a session like this, you've got to be expecting to have some pretty big swings. I think Phil's probably going to be more full of confidence, obviously, picking up over $100,000 pretty early on. But Andrew Feldman knows he's here for the long haul. He knows it could end up that he ends up losing a few $100,000 in this cash game.
Well, this is interesting. Phil Ivey has raised it up with Jack-7, and Andrew Feldman's going to play his button. He's going to re-raise, and he's going to take this one away as Ivey gets out of the way. So the first round goes to Ivey, but the second round goes to Feldman.
I think the first round was almost a knockout, so I'd take that one rather than the second.
Well, there's one now.
Yeah, one I put with him. Broken my duck.
Andrew, quick chance to have a catch-up. It's been pretty tough for you in the opening few hands, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as in, haven't really had many hands in the only first real premium hand I had, the ace-king. I raised it up and flopped a straight and second nut flush draw against Phil Ivey. And he check raised me and decided to call the turn for the inevitable flush for both of us.
One.
And he bet, which I pretty much felt he was going to bet the turn, whatever it was, so I felt I had to call. And the river made a flush, well, total blank. I just felt that all-in bet coming. I just felt it, whatever the river was, he was going to push.
Come on.
Phil over betting the pot, moving all in here.
I made the call, which obviously he had the nuts, and yeah, it was a bit up. That's just the way it goes. Cool.
Oh, and he calls!
He makes the call. I've seen him make a few calls in the past. I wasn't surprised that he did it.
It's a horrible situation to be in, but obviously still early stages. Do you think you've picked up a few bits that might help you in the latter stages, and can you turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, buy-in's nothing in this game. I can easily turn it around. You know, like Phil Ivey a couple of years ago was the biggest loser at the start, and he ended up turning it around in one hand against Patrick. So, you know, anything can happen in this. You just if I get aces against kings, then can get all my money back. So no, I'm optimistic that hopefully hit some cards and connect with some flops, and Phil Ivey's will be on the other end of flush over second nut flush. So we'll see
we would love to see another $900,000 hand or whatever it was. Hope it goes to you. Well done. Hope it gets better for you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Well done.
Yes, it's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. 7 players fighting for a lot of money. Matusow not going to play. Is going to get up and walk away. Action on Ivey.
Cool.
Jack 8 offsuit. Well, he's going to play.
Pass. Pass. Cool.
Cunningham going to complete from the small blinds. Tom Dwan taps the table, and we're going to see a flop 3 ways. 10, 10, 5. Couple of hearts out there. Well, nobody has anything, so whoever bets is going to take this one down, right?
And true to form, looks like Phil's reaching for his chips. Just pegging 1,000. Pretty simple percentage play here. 2,500 in there. He figures more often than not I'll pick this up with 1,000 bet. Of course, these players all experienced and know that that's probably what Phil's doing.
Well, Tom Dwan not going to let him do it.
700.
Raise this one up. Even the small pots, they don't go uncontested.
Cool.
Well, he's floating one here, Phil.
Yes, do not adjust your dial. The cards are correct. 4 clubs. Well, gives Dwan a little bit of a draw. He has a gut shot now. Now, he did check raise on the flop. Pot is 10,600. Can he bet one more time?
This is Tom Dwan. Of course he can bet one more time.
But Ivey's range is, I mean, it's ridiculously wide, isn't it?
It is very wide, but Tom also knows that Phil's quite likely to float one in this spot as well.
$7,300.
He bet 7,300 into a $10,600 pot.
I wonder if Phil can float another one, or if he's... No, looks like he's reaching.
21.
21.
And he's raised this up.
Well, this is what confidence can do for you. Gets off to such a strong start, Phil. He's now making great plays.
Now, just a little while ago, Matusow said that there's no way Ivey's bluffing there. Is that why Ivey's bluffing here? To show everybody that he can bluff?
I think everyone in the world knows he can bluff, but I think he just knew his player in this spot. Beautiful play by Phil. Takes that one down without having to have the best hand.
Tom, every time you bet, they just raise you. Every time. How come?
Just read the situation perfectly and picks up a cool 10,000 that he just didn't look like was there for the taking.
I don't like the way they're treating you.
It's great play by Tom. More often than not, if you're playing against 99% of the players in the world, that kind of play will get through. But the 1%, that's Phil Ivey. He can read it and he can make the replay. Fantastic stuff.
And this is truly a marathon of poker games. 24 hours of No Limit Hold'em. And all these players, they've all played long, long sessions. I know you have, I have. Most poker players, it's not a foreign thing for them to play 20 hours straight, 21 hours straight. Feldman not going to play. Ferguson not going to play. Cunningham, ace-queen offsuit.
I bet he's going to play.
2,000 to play.
That's why you're good. Nothing gets by you, Gary.
Pass.
Tom Dwan not going to play, though. And Matusow, the king-queen. Now, under normal circumstances, I like king-queen off. But would you be calling a raise from Alan Cunningham, especially an early position raise?
Players.
Perhaps not. But he has got the button, he has got position. The 2 blinds, of course, who probably feels like he's got quite a lot of value. And as it happens, he hasn't got a bad flop for his king-queen. But it's a better flop for Patrick Antonius.
Yeah, Patrick Antonius a top pair. Cunningham's...
I think he's got too many. He has got a double straight draw here as well. He can catch a 9 to make a straight that he won't want to hit when he's up against Mike Matusow's hand. And he can also catch a king, which he would like to hit.
Cool.
There's only one king left in the deck, though. We can see 3 of these players have kings.
Phil Ivey out the way. He doesn't have much to carry on with this. Real dangerous looking board. Patrick with the best hand right now, he makes the call.
Yeah, Patrick going to play a little small ball there. He's not going to build this pot up even with top pair.
7.
Well, that's a dangerous card for all 3 hands.
Yeah, there's a one-liner to a straight now. If anybody had a 9 in their hand, they would have made the straight.
Check. Check.
And it checks around. Here's the river.
9.
River is the 9. And wow, it's an action card there. There's a straight on the board. But Mike Matusow with the absolute nuts. Alan Cunningham with the queen high straight. And Patrick Antonius' hand is absolute garbage right now. He can only play the board.
I think he knows it is as well. But it's not going to stop him firing. Whatever he bets is pretty well what Alan Cunningham's going to lose in this pot.
1,000.
I think Alan's going to call it.
13.
And Matusow's got to be just absolutely jumping in his seat.
It's a perfect spot for him as well to have Patrick leading and Alan just going to have to make the call.
Cool.
Patrick does lead for 13,000. Alan calls. Well, it's an easy raise from Matusow. Obviously, he's got the absolute nuts. The only question is, how much does he raise?
The black chips.
Raise. Pass. 32 total.
Well, the bet's 32,000. Patrick Antonius knows he picked the wrong spot. He's out the way. Now it's up to whether Alan wants to call the other 19,000. Does he think that Mike's going to do this with just a queen?
Cunningham, one of the best players I've ever seen. And we've been doing this for 4 seasons. Cunningham's been here for 4 seasons. I have not seen a better player. Just uncanny the way he knows when he's beat.
And the thing about that we've seen from Alan is not that he's got the maximum when he's got a big hand. It's the fact that he's got away from so many hands and lost the minimum. Absolutely fantastic. It's not always about how much you can win. It's quite often about how little you end up losing with big hands. And that's exactly what he's a master of.
Experienced players are capable of making those laydowns. They've been in the situation before. You just have to let it go sometimes.
In reading other players, you have to realize what they think of your game and how they think you play. And from there, you can sort of deduce their hands. And I had a pretty big hand, especially against a player as aggressive as Phil Ivey. I had 2 aces, and Mike Matusow had limped under the gun, and I raised him, which normally means you have a pretty strong hand to raise it under the gun limper. Phil Ivey calls in the big line, and Mike Matusow also calls. Phil Ivey bets all 3 streets. So I feel like after calling him twice, he could be almost certain that I had an overpair. And now on the river, he bet a modest amount.
35.
That's exactly what I thought you were supposed to bet. But it really looked like a bet size I would call him again with an overpair. So because it looked like I had an overpair and looked like I would call him, I had to disappoint him by throwing it away.
He's laid it down.
Yeah, he made a good laydown for sure. I mean, sometimes, people make good laydowns against you. Sometimes they make bad laydowns. He happened to make a good one this time.
Alan Cunningham, by the way, down just under $27,000, but I would not bet against him turning this one around.
No, not at all. I certainly wouldn't rule out Tom Dwan still being the big winner here, and he's down about 27,000 as well. Anything can happen with Tom in the house.
Well, hello there. Phil Ivey picks up ace-queen.
And he's mixing it up. Just a black call. Raise from Tom, call from Mike.
Last year, that was something special, boy. No, you won the biggest. You won 500.
Last year was
And Mike, by the way, also mixing it up a little. He wasn't playing aggressive before, but now that he's up 30,000, he's called a raise with Jack-10 suited.
Wow, that's a bit of a flop.
Oh, we're going to see fireworks here. Queen.